What is the tissue? You have rounded structures lined by a single layer of cells, and on one side, you have an aggregate of some other form of cells. And then the rounded structures is highly vascularized. Tissues. These are chorionic villi. Okay? Cytotrophoblast, syncytiotropoblastic knot. Syncytiotropoblastic knot, syncytiotropoblastic knot. Blood vessel, blood vessel, blood vessel. Lahat ng ganito, blood vessel within the chorionic villi. After all, your placenta is like a huge blood vessel. Okay? So you must recognize it without pathology, and that is what you have learned in histology. However, this can be focused to you. These structures are also chorionic villi. Tama? But all you can see now are fibroblasts. They're the only ones living. Where is the lining epithelium or the lining cell of this chorionic villi? Wala nang cytotrophoblast, wala nang syncytiotropoblastic cells. Tama? Pero nare-recognize nyo pa ba siya as chorionic villi? Oo, dahil sa size and shape niya, di ba? May mga butas-butas pa for the blood vessels. So you have the architecture, but you don't have the nuclei. What is the necrosis? Coagulation necrosis. What's the usual cause? All coagulation necrosis is caused by hypoxia. Okay? But the reaction of the brain is different. That's the only exception. The brain will undergo liquefactive necrosis instead of coagulation necrosis when subjected to hypoxic injury. Okay? Lahat ng organs magkakaroon ng coagulation necrosis pagka nagka-hypoxia siya. Okay, what other thing can be asked of this? Bakit nagkakaganto sa placenta? Anong tawag mo sa lesion na to? Sa gross lesion. Maputi siya. White? Hemodynamic changes. White infarct. Okay? All white infarcts are also caused by hypoxia. Okay? The pattern of cell injury in white infarcts caused by hypoxia is also coagulation necrosis. Tama? So, itong chorionic villi na to, pagka ang tinanong sa inyo, hemodynamic question, white infarct siya. Okay? Ang cause pa rin niya, hypoxia, and you have coagulation necrosis. So, bahala na yung gagawa ng tanong kung saan niya isisingit yung ito, kung saan niya ito gagamitin. Kung gagamitin niya itong slide na to. May tanong kayo dito? Wala naman, no? Sa inyo, pwedeng side question lahat ang itanong. Anik na naman i-pitch. Ito yung malabo. Saan yung M23? Okay. Your laboratory guide labels M1012 as hyperplastic. Tama? Do you have your laboratory guides even with you? It labels this as hyperplastic, but I don't see any hyperplasia. If they're going to use this slide and label it as hyperplastic, they will show you something like this. Okay? A cystically dilated gland, endometrial gland. You must recognize it as an endometrial gland together with the endometrial stroma, and you must see the cystical dilatation of the gland. Okay? Do you still remember the Swiss cheese appearance? Yung Swiss cheese appearance, yung kinakagat na mga daga sa cartoons. Butas-butas yung Swiss cheese. Okay. Kaya tinatawag dito Swiss cheese appearance kasi malalaki yung cystically dilated yung glands mo. Mukha siyang may butas na malalaki. Okay? Pagka nakita niyo yung Swiss cheese appearance, it's showing you hyperplasia. Simple hyperplasia of the endometrium. Look at the stroma, it's highly cellular. It means that the stromal cells are also proliferating via hyperplasia. What is the pathologic stimulus causing this hyperplastic change? It's hormonal, okay? It's estrogen stimulation. If you are taking in estrogen, para lumaki pa yung boobs mo, magtitake ka pa ng estrogen, pwede ka magkaroon ng hyperplasia. Okay? This is the if they're going to show you a hyperplastic endometrium, they will show you the Swiss cheese appearance. Remember. Pathologic stimulus, hormonal or estrogen. Well, endometrium. According to your laboratory guide, this is the normal proliferative endometrium. Okay? It's not, you don't see the Swiss cheese appearance. Regular yung mga endometrial glands, same sizes, and they form straight lines towards heaven. That's the proliferative endometrium. You just saw the Swiss cheese appearance. If you see the Swiss cheese appearance, that's endometrial hyperplasia. And then 12. And then we go to slide number 8. Slide number 8. Can you see this dark spot over here? Okay, I will put it under higher magnification. Okay. Kulay violet siya, di ba? Tapos dark staining. That's calcification. Okay? Dystrophic calcification. When will you see it? The dystrophic calcification, which is also a form of cellular injury. In necrotic tissues, correct? Or injured tissues. Tingnan pa natin yung mas malaki. May mas malaki pa dito eh. Dystrophic calcifications, as mentioned, calcification, matigas siya. Mahirap siyang i-cut by microtomy. Kaya hindi mo siya makuha ng buo pag malaki siya. Like this one. Okay? That's a big dystrophic calcification because of the hardness of the specimen. It's not easy to cut it into very thin slices and put it under the slide, in the slide. That's why you have difficulty getting it as a whole, and that's why it fragments like this. So these are fragments of the dystrophic calcification. This should have been here. However, it flew to some other place. Tawag yan, nag-fly. Okay? Look at that. Because it is hard, because of the calcification, nagpo-fold siya during microtomy. Pero yung pinakita ko sa inyo kanina, it's a very small focus, kaya na-cut siya. Needless to say, on higher magnification, dystrophic calcification just shows you an amorphous, dark violet area. You still remember the samoma bodies shown to you on SGD of the thyroid gland. That's a calcification likewise. So if you see something like this, violet, dystrophic calcification. Pag nakakita kayo sa lungs ng itim, ano yon? Carbon pigment. Okay? Exogenous pigment, inclusions yon. Pag nakakita kayo sa lungs ng macrophage na may brown pigment sa loob, ano yon? Sa lungs, tapos may brown pigment, yellow-brown pigment sa loob. Hemosiderin yon, heart failure cell yon, chronic passive congestion yon. Ang isa pang pwedeng pakita sa inyo, melanocyte. May melanin pigment. That's also an endogenous inclusion. Anik naman itish. Ulok. What is focused? Can you see anything? Can you recognize it as a tissue? Higher magnification. Ay, hindi. Lower yan. Higher magnification. Oh, do you recognize that as a tissue? Ano nakikita nyo? Anong kulay? May nucleus ba? Wala. Kahit neutrophil, kahit lymphocyte, wala. May isa sigurong lymphocyte doon. Okay, ito. Hindi ko alam kung lymphocyte yan or whatever. Pero wala kang nucleus, di ba? May architecture ka. May nakikita kang bilog-bilog na structures or kaya muscle structures? Wala rin. So, wala kang ma-recognize, ang nakikita mo lang pink na pulbos-pulbos. That's necrotic debris. Okay? Necrotic debris lang yung nakikita mo, halos walang cell na iba, okay? Walang inflammatory cell na iba. Pag nakakita kayo ng ganito, pink lang na necrotic, wala kang makitang architecture, that's caseous necrosis. Okay? Ang liquefactive necrosis, maraming neutrophils. Tapos may pink-pink din na ganito. So, pag maraming neutrophils, tapos may ganito rin na pink, that's liquefactive necrosis. Pag wala halos na inflammatory cells, tapos puro pink, that's caseous necrosis. What is the cause? What is the cause of caseous necrosis? Hypoxia? Is it caused by hypoxia? It is caused by an infectious agent. Nasaan ba edge nito? Same slide. Same slide. This is caseous necrosis, correct? Pwedeng may dugo yung caseous necrosis, RBCs. Tapos, what do you see here? Very near the caseous necrosis. These are epithelioid histiocytes, what you see here, and these are lymphocytic infiltrates rimming the lesion, okay? And you have multinucleated giant cells over here. Tama? The fibroblasts are also over here. This is cacheating granulomatous inflammation. You usually see cacheation necrosis at the center of granulomas. So it can be asked in inflammation. It can be asked as injury and repair because it has cacheation necrosis. So it has a granuloma that's inflammation, and this is T-cell mediated. So they can ask you immunologic questions with this slide. Tama? So pwede siyang lumabas. What is the hallmark cell of a granuloma? A. Langhans multinucleated giant cell. B. Lymphocyte. C. Cacheation necrosis. D. Epithelioid histiocyte. Sige, bawal magkama dito na epithelioid histiocyte ang sagot. A granuloma is composed of a cluster of epithelioid histiocytes rimmed by lymphocytes. Bonus na lang kung tinatamad na yung mga macrophage kumain ng marami at magkumpul-kumpul sila, forming a multinucleated giant cell. Okay? Bonus na lang yon. A granuloma can be caused by fungal infections, schistosomiasis, foreign body, and in this case, mycobacterium. But only Mycobacterium tuberculosis is associated with cacheation necrosis in granulomas. Okay, And then you have the uterus again. Talagang maraming itatanong sa uterus. Tingnan nyo yung age. Pag matanda o kaya pag tinanggalan ng ovaries na nagsusupply ng hormones, anong nangyayari sa ovary? Nangungo yung pis, lumiliit. So this is normal, okay? Normal myometrium, and this is atrophic myometrium. Look at the spaces between the cells, very far, and there is fibrosis as well. Ay, ano ba yan? In between the cells. So there's more fibrous tissue in between the cells. Kaya meron ka mga pink na ganito. Ito lang yung muscle mo, ito fibrous tissue. Okay? Look at the blood vessels. Most of them are thickened, have thickened walls, or they are sclerotic. As you grow older, this is what happens to the body of the uterus or the myometrium. You will have atrophy of the myometrial cells or the smooth muscle cells, and you will have atrophy is usually accompanied by fibrosis. Okay? So the portions in between the cells will usually grow fibrous bands, as what you see here. These are fibrocollagenous tissues. These are the muscles. And look at the blood vessels. They have thickened walls. Kasi masyado ng maraming kinaing taba. Finish. Bakit pa? Okay. These are fibrous tissue. This area here shows you fibrous tissue. However, pagka ang pinoko sa inyo, itim na ganito, alam niyo naman yung kulay. Pag itim, carbon yon. Okay? Usually, this will be shown in the lung parenchyma. Dun sa mga septum o kaya near the fibrous tissue supporting the larger air passages. These are called anthracotic pigments or carbon pigments. Usually, sasabihin sa yung history, city dweller o kaya smoker, yung mga ganyan. Okay? Maraming carbon na o kaya carbon miner or ano yan? Coal miner. Yun yung mga sasabihin sa yung pwedeng history. Tapos magkakaroon ka ng anthracotic pigments. Itim ang pigment. So titingnan nyo yung kulay ng mga pigment. Lapit na matapos. Kasoli naman po. Ito, tapos na ako dito. 6. Nandyan ba yung pen? Ayan. I-recall siya.
Kailangan pa po.
6, 5, 11, 4. 6, 5, 11. 10, okay na.
Wala tayong folder.
Oo. Joel! Joel? Conrad? Pahingi ng slide number 4. Slide number 4, histo. Oo. Okay, the next slide is M1006. If they're going to focus something like this, ganyan lang ang pakikita sa'yo. Anong sagot? This is liquefactive necrosis. What you're seeing are neutrophils, RBC, and the pink powdery stuff. That's necrotic debris. Okay? So, ganyan ang liquefaction necrosis. No architecture, masyadong maraming neutrophils. Pwedeng may dugo, tapos may necrotic debris. Kaya ka may necrotic debris, kinain na yung mga bulok na yung mga cells mo at kinakain siya ngayon ng neutrophils. In other words, you have a pocket of nana in this area here. The usual cause for the brain is hypoxia. Other than the brain, it's usually an infection with a pyogenic organism. Okay? So this is an abscess. Micro-abscess in this manner. What's the difference between an abscess and liquefaction necrosis? There's a fibrous capsule in an abscess. Okay? It's localized. When you say you have liquefactive necrosis, there is no limit. Hindi mo makita yung border. Pag sinabi mong you have an abscess, it's localized. Why? You have a pseudocapsule localizing that area with nana. Zero 5.
Wala.
Ito. Sabi. Okay, histology. Where are we? Nasaan tayo, mga kababayan? Although nasira yung microtomy. Ano ang pwedeng magpakita sa inyo niyan? You are in the squamo-columnar junction of the cervix, uteri. Tama? The ectocervix, what you see here, is lined by stratified squamous epithelium, and the endocervix. Here you see the endocervical glands or endocervical crypts is lined by tall columnar cells with basally oriented nuclei. Correct? So you only see the crypts or the endocervical glands in the endocervix. There is no such thing as ectocervical gland. Ayan. Sa histo? Okay. Thanks. The endocervical crypt or gland should be lined by tall columnar cells with basally oriented nuclei. And here, you are already in an area of the endocervical glands. Tama, naiwan na natin yung ectocervix dito sa lugar na ito. Nasaan ba yung ectocervix? Creep. Ito ang ectocervix mo. Ito yung ectocervix mo. The junction should have been here, kaya lang nasira yung slide mo. So the junction should have been here, tapos nagki-creep formation na siya from here. Okay? So this is ectocervix, and this is the junction, and you have the endocervix over here, and you have the creep formation over here. So you have the endocervical glands over here. But this portion here, which is deep in the endocervical area already, shows you this lining epithelium. Ano yung lining epithelium niya? Ito. At saka, ito. Yan. It's lined by stratified squamous epithelium, but you know that you are in the endocervical portion already. Anong tawag dyan? That's squamous metaplasia. What is the cause in this case? It may be because of chronic inflammation in the area, or it may be because of a physical injury such as a physical form of injury such as what happens when you have a uterine prolapse. Okay? In this case, I think it's because of inflammation. You can see here lots of inflammatory infiltrates. So look at the history as well. Kasi sasabihin sa iyo yung clue doon. What is the what is the tissue? What is the tissue? Ano yung tissue? Skin yan. May hair follicle ka dito. Ito yung epidermis. This is the dermis. You have the sebaceous glands over here. That's another hair follicle. Okay na tayo? But where's your pathology? In the dermis, you have an aggregate of these cells. This can also be asked in neoplasia. And this can also be asked because of these inclusions. Look at the color of the inclusion within the cells. Golden brown pigment in the cytoplasm. That's the melanin pigment. Okay? Produced by melanocytes. Normally, you will see the melanin pigment produced by melanocytes at the polygonal cell layer of the stratified squamous epithelial lining of the epidermis, such as what you have here. So this is the basement membrane of the epidermis, and you are now in the dermal part, but you still see a cluster of melanocytes producing the same pigment. That's the melanin pigment, yellow-brown pigment, and this is likewise a neoplastic condition. This is an intradermal nevus. It is benign. If you are so malas and it becomes malignant, you call it a malignant melanoma. A melanoma is famous to you because it's one of the lesions which ends with an oma but is malignant. Okay? You must recognize the inclusion body. Pagka black, carbon yon. Pag yellow, brown, na gano'n ang kulay, pwedeng hemosiderin o kaya pwedeng melanin, depending on where you see it. Bilirubin din, pwedeng gano'n yung kulay. Kasi hindi mo naman siya makikita as green. Hematoxylin and eosin lang yung stain mo. Slide number 4. Doon tayo sa mababa. Okay. This can also be given in neoplasia. This is a section of the skin. Tama? Section of the skin, ang lining epithelium mo, stratified squamous epithelium which is keratinizing, like what you have here. Anong nangyari sa part na to? Anong kumapal? Ito lang yung basement membrane mo, ganyan lang dapat. Ito lang ang thickness. You want higher magnification. Tapos tsaka tayo bumalik. Normal. That's normal. Do you agree with me? You have all the layers there, including the keratin layer. Tama? The basal layer, polygonal cells, flattened cell layer, and you have the keratin layer. Tama? You have an intact basement membrane. Tama? Normal ito. Tingnan nyo yung thickness. Balik tayo sa mababang magnification. Ito yung tinitingnan nyo kanina. This part. Look at this part over here. That's your basement membrane, and there is a lesion over here, which is even thicker. If your epidermal lining is thickened, you call that acanthosis. If you have enhanced dermal papillae and rete-ridges, that's papillomatosis. If you have a thickened layer of flattened cells and a thickened layer of flattened cells without nuclei, that's hyperparakeratosis. Okay? You have acanthosis, papillomatosis, and hyperparakeratosis in this area. This area is lined by a thickened squamous epithelium. This is actually a squamous papilloma. It's a benign condition involving the skin. What is the cause? Usual cause of squamous papilloma. In Tagalog, in English, in plain language, you call this a wart. If it is found in the inguinal area or in the area near the genital area, it's called a condyloma. What's the usual cause of warts and condylomas? It's human papilloma virus. They usually attack the superficial portions of the lining epithelium and convert the cells into virus factory. Okay? If you see this, that's a squamous papilloma, that's a benign lesion. The cause is human papilloma virus. But what is being shown in this slide is something like this cell over here. Okay? If this is focused to you, something like this, that's an apoptotic body. It represents apoptosis or programmed cell death. Okay? So this is a squamous papilloma because it is a neoplasm, as it is, you have an apoptotic body. Apoptotic bodies are usually seen in rapidly proliferating cells. Okay? Check and balance yan. Kaya ka may apoptosis para hindi masyadong kumapal yung area mo. Kaya ka may programmed cell death. Kaya nagpapalit ang balat natin. Kaya nagpapalit yung epithelium because of apoptosis. Okay? Huwag nyo nang i-miss to ha, na-miss nyo na to sa histo eh. Dito, tamain nyo na pagka pinakita sa inyo yung apoptosis. Pwede nga tanong sa inyo, what is the difference between this cell and necrosis? Ang necrosis, may inflammatory component. This is programmed. Usually, isa lang ang nagkakaroon ng ganito. Isang cell lang ang magka-apoptosis. Pero sa clonal deletion ng thymus. Okay? Tapos, ang necrosis, maraming cell. Kasi tinatawag siya ng chemotactic factors, yung mga neutrophils mo. Injurious agent ang nakakaroon ng necrosis. Both of them are cell death, apoptosis. Kahit wala kang injurious agent, programmed cell death yon. Next module. Natok.
Dok, ilang module po, Dok?
Ha?
Ilang module po?
Ilan na yung ni-lecture sa'yo?
4, 5.
Pakilabas si 15. Pag blood vessel ang pinakita sa inyo, tingnan nyo kung active congestion, puro RBC ang nasa loob. Pagka ang tinatanong sa inyo, inflammation, tingnan nyo yung margination. Okay? Maraming PMN or neutrophils kang makikita. Sa pinocus nilang blood vessel, maraming PNN na makikita. Pag ang pinocus na blood vessel, puro dugo ang laman. Ang ibig sabihin, ang gusto nilang sagot, hyperemia. Okay? Active congestion. Pag ang pinocus na blood vessel, maraming neutrophils. Baka ang tinatanong niya, margination, emigration, at kung ano-ano pa tungkol sa inflammation. Okay?